Hello, Bethlehem Lutheran Church and friends. I am Pastor Katie,
And I'm Deaconess Ann.
and we're here today with a special Advent devotion for this week.
We're going to be decorating our Advent wreaths with different things that we have at home today. And we want to share a little bit more history about the Advent wreath, and then we'll put ours together.
So, this history comes from Night of Silence. It's a website that we'll share with you. You can look in the video description below to get the link for that. Advent is a good time to remind ourselves that many of the Christian symbols we take for granted have rich meaning that often spans centuries. Ritual symbols are not merely designations. Rather, they are vessels that contain storied wisdom and the echoes of history. The tradition of the Advent wreath is no exception. While Christians in the Middle Ages were said to have used wreaths with candles during the Christmas season, historians tell us the first Advent wreath was conceived in the early 1800s by a Protestant pastor named Johann, a man known for his mission work among the poor.
One year, around 1830, Johann noticed that during the month of December, the children in his mission school would inquire daily about whether Christmas had arrived. In response to their impatience and constant questioning, he fashioned a wreath from the wheel of a cart. It featured 20 red candles and 4 white ones. To help the children mark time in the build-up to Christmas, a new red candle was lit each weekday, increasing the number lit as each day passed. White candles were reserved for Sundays. While the idea of the Advent wreath caught on in Protestant churches, it didn't reach the United States until the 1920s. It is around this time that the Roman Catholics began to adopt the ritual, likely learned from German Catholic and Lutheran immigrants. As the custom evolved, people began to source materials from the same natural resource used so dominantly for Christmas decoration, the pine tree.
From the fragrant pine comes its boughs. The wreath's evergreen garland signifies a continuous life with no beginning or end, echoing the symbolic meaning of the wreath's circular shape. Evergreen is also said to signify victory over persecution and suffering. Pine cones may suggest hope and the seed of life. The small, vulnerable pine cone points to the promise of a large, towering tree. Holly and berries may also be added. Their red color points ahead to Jesus' sacrifice, death, and resurrection.
So as it would be today with the Holy Spirit's moving, I happen to have a lot of these things, and we didn't plan it this way. So my Advent wreath is actually a log. We've used it many years. It has wax on it, but this was from a former congregation member in another congregation that made these for the entire church. And it works really well for our young children at home because it's very linear. You can see how many more days until we're there at Christmas. It only has 4 candles, not like 24. Oh my goodness, that would be a massive wreath, right? And I do happen to have a circle of evergreen-like stuff. Okay, this one's fake, but that's okay, it'll work. So I put that around. And the cool thing with Advent wreaths is that it can really be whatever you have. And I bet that Pastor Katie's is gonna look very different than mine, and Pastor Katie's is gonna look different than yours, and it can be different from year to year. And that's just fine. And in our household, we always make a cranberry Finnish pudding. Both my husband and I were both Finnish in background. And so we make this cranberry pudding. I don't know if you can see. We haven't made it yet. But what we do is after the kids literally roll around cranberries on the floor, we boil them before we eat them. Then we do string them, and sometimes we'll hang them from our wagon wheel chandelier, or we'll put them around our Advent wreath. And so sometimes we use real cranberries, which we will later, but we also have little fake berries too, which I didn't know until we read the resource, Katie, that reminds us of Jesus's death and also his resurrection then. So we have 4 little bundles of berries for the 4 weeks in Advent. In our household, we light a candle each Sunday. And so that's why we tend to have 4 as a magic number in our household. So that's our Advent wreath. Katie, I'd love to see yours.
All right, So I just have a hodgepodge of stuff here. Um, my Advent wreath, I decided to build it around this angel candle holder. Um, Someone gave it to me recently, actually, and it is perfect because it's got a round base. I did some more research about the greens used in Advent wreaths and found out that it's not just a tradition in Germany, but lots of traditions in the Northern Hemisphere bring greens, whether it's pine or another deciduous branch or tree or something like holly, during the darkest months of the year. And so lots of different greens are used in different areas to bring that life into your home during the wintertime. And so I'm using fake ones too. You can get a lot of really inexpensive floral stuff at craft stores and some of your basic like box stores. You can order them online. I think I spent maybe between candles and greenery, maybe like $7. I don't know, maybe definitely like no more than like 10. So for my wreath, I'm wrapping some greens around the base of this. I also have, for when we get to our candles, I have these little holders. They hold both votives and they hold tapers. So whichever you use at home, that's great. I also thought about and just using one candle for the whole of Advent and lighting the same candle every week. So if you don't have a bunch of candles laying around home, or if you're not able to go to the store or order, that's cool to do too.
Very cool. Well, speaking of candles, there are 4 candles, and this resource has some great explanation of each one. And even though during worship in Advent, and we'll be lighting the candles, we don't always talk in depth about what each one can represent. So week 1, I have like these little, like they're battery operated ones, because I have small children and flame, you gotta be careful with. So we have fake flames. So week 1, the Advent candle represents the fragile light of hope amidst the deep dark of the season. As Christ's Advent or coming draws nearer, a new candle is lit each week, combining with the candle of the passing week. Christ is referred to as the light of the world and is seen in direct contrast to the bleak darkness of sin. So we think of the lighting of the weekly candle as a spiritual contemplation of your role in the story that is about to unfold. So the first candle, which is purple or blue, depending on which way you want to go, symbolizes hope. And it's referred to as the prophecy candle in remembrance of the prophets, especially Isaiah, who foretold the birth of Christ. It represents the expectation felt in anticipating of the coming Messiah. And just to share, I like week 1 most because hope this year was our word. I'll show you here in our house. Instead of making New Year's resolutions, we chose a word for this year. And this year, our word for our family was hope. So appropriate for 2020.
I love that, Anne. Thanks for sharing.
Sometimes you lose your hope, but it's okay. You can find it again.
You can put it back together.
Right.
I think there's a sermon there. All right. So week 2 of Advent is the second candle. It is often also purple or blue, or as we read, traditionally white as well. The second candle represents Mary and Joseph's journey to Bethlehem. Their experience of preparation was surely nothing like that of today when one looks forward to the birth of a child. Joseph and Mary undoubtedly wanted to be sure their son would have the necessary food, clothing, and shelter for life in this world. But while they were getting ready for Jesus' birth, they were interrupted by a Roman census. By law, Joseph had to go to Bethlehem, his ancestral town, and he brought Mary with him. It is an understatement to say the 90-mile journey was probably an annoyance they could have done without as Mary was nearing the end of her pregnancy.
So week 3 tends to be the different candle. It could be a different color. Ours is like this color changing little block.
Oh,
Isn't that fun? I know
I
we
have
haven't rated the candles yet, but I wanted to show the fun color because week 3 is about joy. And the third candle is pink, like Pastor Katie has there. She found a pink one. How perfect is that? But it can really be whatever color you have or colorful. So it symbolizes joy. It's called the shepherd's candle, and it's pink because rose is a liturgical color for joy. The third Sunday of Advent is Gaudete Sunday and is meant to remind us of the joy that the world experienced at the birth of Jesus, as well as the joy that the faithful have reached the midpoint of Advent. Joy.
all right. Week 4. On the 4th week of Advent, we light the final either purple or blue or white or whatever color candle you have to mark the final week of prayer and penance as we wait for the birth of our Savior. This final candle is the angel's candle and symbolizes peace. It reminds us of the message of the angels: peace on earth, goodwill toward all.
Now my Advent wreath is filled, but maybe yours is not. So like Pastor Katie has one more for Christmas tide. The optional 5th candle placed in the center of creation, which fits perfectly in yours, Katie, there with your 5 and the 1 in the middle, represents light and purity and is called the Christ candle. It is lit on Christmas Day. Advent ends at the time of the first Christmas Eve service, so one may still light the wreath candle on December 24th. After that, it's recommended the white candle is lit. The other candles may be swapped out for white candles. Ooh, that could be fun. Which may also be lit during the Christmas season, which ends on January 6th. So like the season of Christmas is actually 12 days after Christmas until Epiphany. It's the same, you can like keep it up after Christmas.
All right. So Advent is the season of darkness giving rise to light, ever increasing. While we wait during Advent, we hope, and we light these candles. We also celebrate a lot of things during Advent because we're not just waiting for baby Jesus to be born. We have other people who were born and who have big celebrations.
Indeed, there are quite a few anniversaries this season and this week. On the 25th, we have 4 anniversaries, so that must have been a big day many years ago. So happy anniversary to Barb and Gary B, 58 years. To Renee and Dave T, 54 years. Nancy and Bob K, happy anniversary of 48 years. And also on the 25th, to Janelle and Ralph W of 31 years. And happy anniversary on the 27th to Jan and Marv R of 55 years. Many blessings to you for what has been, what is, and what is to come in your lives together. Speaking of lives, yeah, there's lots of birthdays too.
Yes, we do. We have lots of birthdays this week. On November 22nd, happy birthday to Jeff B. November 23rd, Pat B and Nancy K. November 24th, Mike S. The 25th, Micah K, Travis S, and Sharon W. The 27th, Melissa P, Peggy P, Megan S, and Dave T. And November 28th, Nathan R. Happy birthday to you all.
Happy birthday. And a special shout out to all of those who are preparing the church for Advent. Decorations might be different this year, but there are still plans to decorate for Advent, like the Advent wreath at church, and getting ready for Christmas because Advent is getting ready for Christmas.
Also, don't forget to download your Advent devotionals from our weekly email that's been sent out last week and will be sent out again this week. We'll keep sending it all through Advent. If you are unable to download or do not receive the weekly email, please give us a call in the church office and we will print you a copy. And we'd love to talk to you. Have a happy Advent.
Happy Advent.